Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's always exciting to have experts in the building, especially from the same era as myself. A lot of people, we look young for our age, guys. Would you?
Thank
would
you.
Right?
I get that a lot.
You're in your 30s. How old are you, Card? A little bit older than that, but we get to talk about the olden days and a little bit about what it takes to run these businesses that we're all, those of us, we've worked for big companies, most of us, and we know what it's like to work for those big guys. But we want to start our own business, and that's what we talked a little bit about, and that's what this show is really about. So we found some experts, everybody, that are really into this small business stuff. They're roofing experts, been doing this for a long time. So please give a nice, warm welcome to my guests who are here with us today. We've got Abraham Kraus sitting right next to me, and then on the far end there, Gabe Ridgely. And they are the owners of Gables Roofing.
Thank you.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Well, we appreciate that. We'll give a quick shout out to our sponsors, and then I want to get in. I'm going to show everybody some of your guys' work and talk about how it is you became successful. We're offering tips to people to be successful, like Carroll House Furniture, because you like nice things in your little castle, right? And then if you have a castle, you most likely have a mortgage. And so I have my mortgage license. My NMLS number will show up there for everybody, for those of you who are interested in that. And you can see I work with USA Mortgage, and I've got my license there, and part of the Flowers team. So with that, there's our intro from our sponsors. Let's get into the fun part where we talk about our guests here. And it's pretty interesting looking at all the way. Man, you guys got so many reviews. That's kind of like impressive. Small businesses. Putting it together, people like what you guys do. So let's talk about it. Why'd you guys decide to get into the roofing business? Who wants to tackle that question first? Probably both of you have a different story.
Yeah, we have two different stories. I mean, for me, it was back in the mid 2000s, I should say. In the mid 2000s, I was unemployed, looking for something. I'm going ahead and scouring all the ads out there, and I seen an ad out there, and it was to get into the construction business. And basically they were saying you could make $70,000 a year. I'm like, well, that sounds kind of interesting. Let's see what it's all about. Answered the ad, went there and did the interview and all that, and it was a big roofing company called ABC at the time. I don't know if they're still around or not. Got into the business right there. That's when I entered the business. It was, like I said, end of 03, beginning of 04 right there. And it was pretty exciting. It was just something new and something different, and the possibility of making that kind of money at that point in time was pretty good.
Great way to go. $70,000 a year is not a bad living, right? Especially
20 years
ago.
Yes,
or so.
right.
Yeah, I understand that. I was in the middle of working for Anheuser-Busch and doing well there, and all of a sudden, but we all know what happened there. But you can't count on these days big companies going. Abraham, tell me a little bit about your background and where you ended up here.
Well, I was going to school at Springfield, and things were going fine there. And then some personal issues came up where I needed some money. So I had to drop out. I had about 60 credit hours and needed to go to work. So I had a friend that was a roofer, and the draw to me was, he said, I can get you a job. I said, well, great. The draw to me was, there was really no cap on it. We worked by the square, basically piecework. So if I went in and really busted, I could make X amount, or if an average day. So I kind of liked that I could make, there was no real cap on my earnings, So that kind of drew me in, and I laid shingles for 23, 24 years every day on the roof, and I thought, there's got to be a better way. So here we are. I decided to get on the other end of it, So
yeah, well, tell me then, how long has Gables, Golden Gables Roofing been in business? How long has the company actually had your LLC out there, I guess?
2010.
Since 2010.
That's right.
So yeah, you're up to 23 years now, or 13 years now for saying.
Yeah, this is our 14th season.
Yep. 14th season right there. So now you've become experts. They say any business that's made it over 10 years, that's where they're at. So it takes 10 years working 2,000 hours.
I think the majority fails after 5.
Yeah, and there's so many that they don't even make it to 5. That's true, but that's good. So here we are. I'll show you guys a little bit of their work and some of the reviews they've got, obviously, to make you'll see why we've asked them to be guests on our show. But what you talked about the path a little bit, but tell me a little bit about why did you think you were drawn to this after you saw the opportunity? Great, you can make 70,000. But what was it that said, all right, I can do that? And because you're outside, you're a little heavy lifting sometimes. And what was it?
Well, me personally, I think I can do anything. That's just who I am as a person. Like I just, I believe I'm very intelligent. I can do anything that I apply myself to. That's just how I feel about it, And so, like, hey, here's a new opportunity, something I'm totally unfamiliar with. My whole family's been in construction when I was young, and when I was younger, I'm like, I want to be out here doing this all day long, and look at you guys, you look miserable. It's not what I want to do. And then, simultaneously here later, as an older adult, I'm like, you know what? Let's take a look at this and see what's going on here. And so I got into that, and I was kind of like, you know what? I can do this, and it's something I'm not used to doing, but it was a new challenge. And so in that sense, right there, it's kind of exciting because I'm getting to do something new to me that's just totally out of the realm of stuff I'm used to doing, and I just always like that. It's just something new and exciting. So.
I appreciate that. That's where I got into the IT world a little bit. This is something totally new, and a lot of people didn't have any idea how it worked. But I jump in and learn quick by getting out there and doing it.
Yep.
Abraham, similar situation?
Well, I mean, I guess for me, over the time of working, I had such a wealth of knowledge built up, that I knew so much about it. And so it seemed like that was the only really appropriate path to go, was to move forward with this business, I mean, it just seemed appropriate to me. That's really it. I mean.
Well, yeah, you were starting working as a teenager, I guess.
Well, you're right at about 20.
Right.
Yeah. So it's as far as work, that's basically all I know. That and cooking.
Right.
I like to cook.
That's a little tougher gig to make it as a cook.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
Run the restaurant.
Sure. But it just seemed like almost a gimme for me. Is to give it an effort, to give it a go.
Well, then combined between the years of experience you guys have together, you guys are pushing 40 years plus of experience in the industry, plus 10 running the company.
Yep.
So that helps people feel very comfortable with the fact that, they're going to get some guys who really do know what they're doing. What is it that really fuels your passion now that you guys have been doing this for so long? To stay in something for 33 years like yourself, and Gabe as long as you have as well. What is it that, what makes you wake up every day?
Well, for me personally, it's just the fact that, we have an opportunity here to do so much better, not only for ourselves, but for our families, for our loved ones, to really build something here that's going to last. Something we can pass on to, I was going to pass on to my son, but he's deceased now, and unfortunately, and he has a son. And then of course, obviously I have kids I'm now married. I just recently got married. And my kids, and I just want to leave a legacy behind and something to say, look, you know what, if you work really hard, it's going to be really rewarding. There's nothing more rewarding than being a business owner, because when you're a business owner, you're going to get out of it whatever you put into it. And you know what? So really the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want to do with just what you put into it. And so here, just the whole point of that is just, it's so exciting, because now it's like, you know what? I don't have to answer to anybody. I'm just answering to myself, or me and him are communicating together. Obviously, he's my partner and just as important. But the point is that really it's all about what do you guys want? How much do you want? And you know what? It gets more and more exciting every time when we're sitting there and we get this opportunity, we get that opportunity. And it's just like, how blessed are we to be in this position that we can live in this world, and really it's just all about whatever we want to do or don't want to do. And for me, it just kind of I just feel so blessed to be in that position that drives me every day. Like, you know what? I'm not turning down nothing. I want everything. I want to help as many people as I can, and I want to go as far as I can. And I want to be a good example to my kids. Say, look, you can literally do anything you want. And I tell them all the time, I said, look what I did. I said, you can blow me away. I said, I got started late in life being a business owner. I said, if I knew what I knew today, I would have tried at 20, not, at 40, And so for me, that's what really kind of drives me. So
that's important. I don't want to expound upon that, but first I want to hear from Abe. Tell us similar passion about life. You get to what makes you tick.
Well, sure. I certainly like, when I wake up every morning, obviously I have a job to do. I have clients to deal with. But at the same time, basically, I book my meetings, I book my schedule, so I'm running my own ship, And I suppose what drives me, or what got me going in this direction, was seeing other people, other roofing companies, what they were doing when I had all this knowledge, all this, everything, and then obviously the accolades that come from what they had, so yeah, I mean, just really living your best life on your terms is what I would say,
Well, that's the autonomy we gain by having our own businesses. I told you guys a little of my story, a couple times working for myself, a couple times working, most of my life spent working for other big companies. But when it really came down to it, the most satisfaction I got out of that. And I guess where I was going to go with this next, the question is kind of off the menu here, if it's all right, is how much of our youth don't understand. They're like, hard work makes your life easier. You put the dedication and hard work in for a few years, now you've got something you've built, as opposed to just waking up every day, clocking in, putting in a few hours, going back, and nothing that you've owned, that you created yourself. Is our younger culture missing some of that?
Going through the motions is what's going on,
Okay.
Big time. My daughter, one of my daughters today, she's going through a inconvenience is what I call it. And in life, because her car's broke down and it's going to take an extra day longer to fix it. She's like, well, I'm not going to be able to see my boyfriend and this and that and the other, and like it's the end of the world. And I said, I said, I know to you it's a really big deal. And I said, but at the end of the day, these little hardships that are today, it's monumental hardship for you. But I said, later down the road, you're going to look back at this and you're like, oh, well, that was nothing. I said, it's all these little hardships that later are going to make your life, I don't want to say necessarily easier, but be able to make you be able to deal with things that actually are hard. Because I said, this is nothing hard. It's just not. And I said, if you just stay the course, you go through some stuff, I'm like, later, this kind of stuff, when it hits you later, is going to be nothing, just as a small little example.
Yeah, no, that's a great perspective to put onto it, because how many times in our life, especially when we were younger, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world.
Oh yeah.
I make the joke that so many people talk about their dog got in an accident or peed on the floor or something even less, and it's like the end of the world. It's like, oh my gosh, you guys, let's put it in perspective here, and not to compare horror stories, but I was in a coma, hit by a drunk driver, and it's like, and I have people crying about stuff. It's like, give me a break, man. Let me tell you what a real problem is. And it just helps you to appreciate. And those kinds of hurdles are kind of what you end up going through. Tell me if I'm right. As a business owner, there's one thing after another, but it's a matter of you just got to stick with it, because you're going to learn a lot from whatever you're going through, and it's going to make you a better business person, a better person.
I can go on a little caveat on what you're just talking about. So, when I was younger, I wanted to be a professional musician, which we all know that's a very, very, very small percentage chance to make that actually happen,
right,
as far as a career.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was at the end of my 20s, and I'm like, it's got to happen now or it's not going to happen. Well, all of a sudden, we started getting real traction. We started actually getting airplay on the radio. We were setting up our first Midwestern tour, and everything. And I was so excited. I'm like, oh, finally it's going to happen, and whatever. And then my singer, he was a truck driver for AF, and he was driving the double trailers. Well, I guess apparently when they loaded the one trailer, they didn't secure the load. So when he came off on the off ramp, the load shifted, kicked the whole thing over, kicked the whole rig over, and he broke his neck. Oh, luckily, wow. On the good side is he survived. It was a neck fracture. He did survive that, but that was the end of the dream right at that moment.
Yeah.
But the point being is that I was pursuing it up to that point, and stuff happens, and just kind of like, holy cow, that's a wholly just devastating thing. You're lucky you're here today. You could just been gone and whatever. The point is that you never know what the world's going to throw at you, and when it does, you pick up the pieces and you just got to move on, because that's just the way life is.
Yeah, that's well said there. Pick up the pieces and move on, because it's in a matter of time. Everybody's going to go through some kind of hurdle. Hopefully not a coma, but there's going to be something difficult.
Oh, my gosh.
And my dreams were smashed too. I had won the same award as David Freese and Ryan Howard.
Right.
Slava MVP.
You probably dreamed of being a professional, didn't you?
Yeah, I was on the path. I'd practiced every day. I did so much more. Cliff Polite, a buddy of mine, he's like, Carter, you were the guy that was going to make it to the big leagues. Cliff made it for the White Sox. Got a ring with the White Sox.
I got friends that made it to the big leagues from high school.
And it's just like, what do you do after a dream like that is so smashed? And you have to go on. I'm in a position now where that's the first time I've ever said this on air, and that is a matter of, I feel like now I'm in a position I wouldn't trade being a professional baseball player with anybody. Maybe if I was like a Pujols or a Jim Edmonds or somebody that was super, but the odds of that, you got to be one of the top 550 pro athletes, baseball athletes in the world to make it into the big leagues, and then you're going to be in the top 10% of that. Oh man,
Yeah.
I just feel very fortunate now because I really get to really help smaller businesses keep up with what is going on in the world and make a difference. And it's really been enlightening for me. So I wish everybody would just stick with whatever they've got going on, because there's so much. It doesn't matter what hurdle it is. If you overcome, you're going to learn, and it'll redirect you to somewhere else.
And so now you know you're doing what you're doing now versus, say, potentially being a professional athlete. You can't tell me that this ain't every bit as rewarding as, say, being that, maybe even more. I don't know,
Yeah, no, this is as about as exciting as it would be to be a pro athlete, I think.
See,
You
and
get
for
to
us,
be out in front of people.
we have ups and downs, and obviously, people knowing we're out there is one of our biggest struggles. For people to know that we're there. But so this being our sixth season,
working together.
Yep, we've increased our flow each year, whether it be one roof, 20 roofs. We've grown every year, and I think that's great. I mean, I think that's the pattern that you're looking at.
Yeah, and that's what the longevity. If
Yep.
people will just be consistency is really, I think,
Yep.
what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
And always just improving a little bit. How do you eat an elephant?
Yep.
One bite at a time.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Right? How do you? They say you can lose 365 pounds if you lose 1 pound a day, right?
Right. Well, yeah.
And who's going to do that? Put a few on, take a few off. But
Right.
I mean, literally, those are the methods. Of the psychology is just not there. It seems like they don't teach kids in schools anymore these days.
I agree with that. Totally.
Cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about your guys' reviews. You guys have some dynamite reviews. I want to give everybody a little taste of what. Here's how you run a business, everybody. If you're going to be successful, this is the kind of review outlay you should have. So I'm first up on the wall here for everybody. This is your BBB page, and where you are A+ certified, and almost for a decade now. But that's what you really want to look at. This means you're accredited, you're trusted, you're established, and people, when they want to know about a company, they look at that BBB to see what you've done there. And then another place a lot of people do go to is your Google reviews. So I'll put that up here. Another 5.0, 24 reviews out there, and for you guys doing a great job there, incredible stuff. And so, for instance, Ken Roach says, Gabe and his team are very reliable, honest, and knowledgeable. They've worked on your roof several times and would not hesitate to hire him again. So great reviews you got there. And that's the Google reviews. But a place where I found you guys, this kind of blew me away. I was like, how did you guys get this many people that said so much good stuff about you? But here you are, Golden Gables Roofing. This is on Thumbtack. And up here, 273 reviews, everybody. I just got to give a shout out for that. That's amazing and good work. I've never seen that. I've never seen. I've seen that for the big national companies.
It took a moment.
Right.
But there's a lot that goes into that.
Right.
But why do you think you've earned so many great reviews out there?
I think for me personally, it's just the fact that me and Abe talk about this all the time. It's like no matter what we do, we always got to do it the right way and everything. Because I said, you should do that anyways. But in today's industry, everything's transparent. Anybody can just get on there and review you or say, oh, this and the other. So I said, if you give anybody a reason to talk bad about you, they're going to. So I said, let's not ever give them a reason to talk bad about us. Let's always do the right thing every time. And if there's an issue, please let us know. We're just gonna go ahead and address it immediately, because we always want to do the right thing. And I said, if we always do the right thing, it's always going to work out. And it's always and that's how it's worked out. So,
I think that the word that we'll probably use more than once today is integrity. That is what we have. I try to treat every customer like they're my only customer. Obviously, you get busy, but when you call us, you're going to get Gabe or myself out there, and we're going to treat you like the only person.
Yeah, we know every single customer that we have.
So
personally,
integrity is what is kind of our backbone of our company.
Yeah, well, integrity is one of the most critical establishments that anybody should go for. If you can be integral, you can show up on time, do what you say, stand behind your work. That's going to be key to the success. And that's when you bring that out. I didn't have to ask to say, what do you guys think about integrity? You guys brought that out without me having asked, and that's just essential to the success of business today. And I think it's another shortcut, if you will. The shortcut is doing the work right.
Yeah.
It's a longer approach actually for a lot of people, but
Yeah.
as we talked a little bit about, these kids don't want to do the work because they're afraid, it could take away from their video games. But man, what if you just put the time in, and all of a sudden, and as you do that work, you develop the reputation and the
Not only that, but if you do it right the first time, you don't ever have to come back.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the thing. We get very, very few callbacks, and that's nice. The work is done right the first time. And when we do get a call, if there's any sort of problem, we address it immediately. Either Gabe or I go out there and we address it immediately, and that matters.
Well, key note there, everybody. So this is where I get out my pencil and say, take note. These guys really know what they're doing. They're experts in the field. That's why we want to have you guys on. We got the sense, we started looking at your reviews, like, these guys are going to be a great example to help our small business owners realize it's a lot easier. It's a lot less work long term. Would you rather work 35, 40 years doing things halfway? I'm not going to use the A word in there, but half not so good as just do them right the first time. And there's going to be times you periodically have something you got to address, but you go in and you just fix it. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that makes it easy for everybody. All right. Great stuff, guys. We appreciate that. Then tell me, what is the one thing that you would say sets you guys apart? If there's one thing you could say, this is what we do better than anybody. Is it that quality? Is it that integrity?
That's what I was going to say. We're right back to it. I think that is number one on the list, wouldn't you?
I do, because here's I don't want to diss any other roofing companies, and there's a lot of roofing companies, and there's a lot of people who work for these lot of companies, and the problem is with a lot of these companies, they get really, really big. They kind of lose sight of the big picture, and everybody becomes a number. So I've worked for several big companies, and what I realized when I work for the big companies is that all the customers become numbers, and so so there's no more. They just don't seem to really care, because they're more about, well, we got to feed this machine because the machine's got so big now, and we got a lot of overhead, and we got to feed the machine. And so really, if there's a problem or issue, well, that's a side note. And our secretary will field the call, and then we'll send it out to somebody and we'll deal with it later, or whatever. But they just don't seem to really care anymore. Where me and Abe, we're talking to everybody, every individual. What's your concerns? Do you have any problems? What is, go to the property. Okay, well, every individual job has its own unique circumstances, and a lot of them you have to actually design out what you're going to do, how you're actually going to do the job, because of all the logistics involved. Because certain jobs have lots of logistics, and people would think, oh, it's just roofing. It's like, no, there's a lot going on here, and if you don't do this right, it's not going to work out right. And we do all that stuff because we don't want to ever have to come back. We want it to be a one and done. We want the customer to be happy, and they're not even going to think twice about referring us. These big companies, they've seemed to have really lost that. And if you look at any of the big companies, I'm not going to say any names, and check the reviews, you're going to see that. And that's why you're seeing those reviews. That's why they got bad reviews. That's why when you look at our reviews, you don't find bad reviews. Why? Because that's not what we do.
There you go.
All right.
Abraham, you agree with that?
Yeah. There is unique challenges to every job. We were at a job a couple weeks ago, and this guy wants his roof replaced. Okay, well, it's the access. It's 30 yards, maybe 40 yards to even get to his place. There's steps, there's stairways. This guy built all this stuff. And he's like, well, I guess I never really... Well, he said he called a couple other roofing companies, and then a buddy of mine referred us over to him. And he's like, well, now I know why they've never came back. I said, man, these shingles are going to have to be somehow carried, hand-loaded to your roof. All the materials coming down. It's 30 yards, the closest we can get to this dumpster. I said, this is a major operation here, And he's like, I'd never thought about it like that. That's why nobody's called me back, And I said, I'm not saying we can't do it, but we're going to have a plan here. And this is not just a simple tear off and replace. So there again, sometimes the homeowners are a bit naive, I would say,
Well, there you go. And so the guys who come through and do it right, finish the job, make it right, and take on the challenges to make these things come together. Sure. We got just a couple minutes left here in our first show. We're going to record 2 shows. We do 2 interviews with everybody as it stands right now with our guests we have in here. And so everything we've covered here is recorded. You can watch it on ABC. we also give a copy to our guests for them to put on their website. It's going to be on our social media, and we help spread the word with these businesses. They're doing a great job that way. But the second show, same thing. It'll air the next night usually, typically on Thursday nights and then Friday nights. And we've even got a Saturday night show that we might put something together for everybody too with these guys. But look for this great information they've got out there. And with that, I want to talk about two more things I want to hit on this show a little bit before we get to the second show's content, which we've got a lot more to cover here. So show up, tune in for that second show, everybody. But as I put up here, let's show just a little bit of the work you guys have done. And you've got a ton of great looking slides from your well, these are on their Facebook page, everybody. So if you look on the right here, this is a pretty extravagant looking roof. How many squares, I guess, is something like that? That's a big roof.
I want to say this one here, if I'm guessing right, it's probably about 35 plus square, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
This particular one. You know, the average home, I'm going to say, is roughly about 25 square. You know, this one's a little larger than that, about 35 square. You know.
Okay, I've got a little bit more on the screen over there. Here's another house. It looks like a smaller roof, but there you are doing the work, bringing your ladder, getting out on top of that thing to make sure they know that they're getting this thing serviced correctly, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so there's a lot more to go through. I'm going to skim through just a few of these pictures. You can see some of these. We're going to talk about what's going on here. Are they playing washers or cornhole on the roof? We're going to come back to talk about what was going on there and show you a little bit more about why these guys have built such a reputation that they have here in just a minute. With that, though, let's talk about one of the most important questions. I love to ask this question. And we only got a couple minutes to answer here. We might carry this over to the second show as we really give the full answer here. But what's a mistake that most consumers make when they're looking at replacing their roof?
I personally think that one of the biggest mistakes most consumers make is they just assume bigger is better. So you go with a big company because, they've been around, they're big and whatever. And you know what? Like I said, I don't want to take anything away from them, but a lot of times bigger isn't better. It's a lot less personable. They charge you a lot more typically because they got a lot more overhead to carry. And if you have an issue, it's not going to be as simple as you're calling me or Abe. It's, you're gonna call the office, talk to your secretary, and hopefully somebody will get back to you in a reasonable amount of time.
Well,
Abe?
And my end of it would probably be, don't always think the cheapest quote is the best. I mean, you need to look into it, possibly look at the reviews, see if they have insurance. The highest quote is not always the best. The lowest quote is not always the worst, but it's usually telling you a little bit of something, you know. So I just think people that jump on the lowest quote right off the bat are setting themselves up for possibly failure, you know.
Yeah, there's something they're cutting corners with there that are going to lead to some potential real problems in the future. And could lead to some real issues. So you don't always, cheap becomes very expensive is one of my dad's favorite quotes.
Well, and I always figure most of the time in life, you get what you pay for.
Get what you pay for.
Yep.
All right, everybody, these gentlemen, we put on their slide a unique titling here. It says, you can see here, I'm going to put this up for everybody, serving the extended St. Louis area, because it's you go out to Union and down south, they've got an extended area. Wentzville, these are all the areas they service, everybody. So stay tuned for more as we get the second show coming up here. This is the Your Little Castle Show.